All righty. Let some more trickle in here. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome in, welcome in. All righty, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So, welcome to Stewart's Opera House. I'm actually here this evening. This month's edition of Spoken and Heard. My name is Devin Sudman. I am the Education Director here at Stewart's Opera House. I have black curly hair, light brown skin, and dark brown eyes. I'm wearing my black rimmed glasses and my Hocking Hills Music Festival t-shirt today. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that Stewart's Opera House is committed to our mission to be a regional leader in the arts community, a center for public expression, and an economic development partner for Southeastern Ohio. We acknowledge that our historic theater sits on the traditional homelands of the Shawnee, Adena, and Hopewell peoples. We recognize the ever-present systemic inequities that stem directly from this painful history of colonization and commit ourselves to respecting and reconciling the long history of injustice. Stewart's is committed to being more intentional in the role we play for racial justice. We also commit to being more inclusive of people historically and currently marginalized based on identity, including gender, sexuality, class, and heritage. We wish to publicly express that hate and systemic oppression have no home in our organization. If we were physically in the Opera House, I would now ask you to stand if it was your first time, okay? So please feel free to make any physical adjustments you need as if it was your first time at a Stewart's event. And let's all clap and cheer wherever we are to make everyone feel welcome. So welcome to Stewart's Opera House, everyone. So I'll be dropping a donation link here in the chat for Stewart's. So that would be to donate to us. And you can also visit our website to find out more about upcoming events and educational opportunities as well. Throughout the evening, I will be monitoring the chat as well as keeping an eye on our YouTube stream. And for now, what's most important is that I introduce Carrie Gunter Seymour, our host this evening. Carrie Gunter Seymour is a 9th generation Appalachian. Her poetry collections include A Place So Deep Inside America, It Can't Be Seen, Sheila Nagig Editions 2020, and Serving Crisis Chronicles Press 2020. Her work is firmly attached to her home soil and is an examination of the long-lasting effects of stereotype and false narratives surrounding Appalachians. Her poems appear in numerous journals and publications, including Verse Daily, Rattle, DC Life Magazine, the New York Times, PBS American Portrait, and on her website, carriegunterseymourpoet.com. She is the founder and executive director of the Women of Appalachian Project and editor of the WOAP anthology series, Women Speak, Volumes 1 through 6. She is a retired instructor of the E.W. Scripps School of Journalism at Ohio University, the 2020 Ohio Poet of the Year, and Poet Laureate of Ohio. I also learned that she is a phenomenal photographer. So please join me in welcoming Carrie Gunter Seymour. Welcome.
Oh my goodness, Devin, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Hello, everyone, and welcome tonight. I, of course, want to give a huge thank you to Devin and the staff at Stewart's Opera House for hosting us these many evenings, these past couple of seasons. And I want to take a moment to send out a very special thanks to our ASL interpreters tonight as well. Joe and Nico, we're so pleased and proud to have you here with us. I'm a pale-skinned woman with long, straight, gray, streaked hair and a toothy smile. I wear glasses. The rims are tinted green, and I'm wearing a cobalt blue dress with white, gray, and black flowers sort of scattered across the bodice and the sleeves. We have 3 outstanding reader performers with us tonight. Kentucky-born and Nashville's finest singer-songwriter, Tiffany Williams, and Central Ohio poets Marcus Jackson and Ruth Awad. You can find links to our guest books and CDs at the Stewart Opera House homepage by clicking on the Arts Education link and scrolling down. I will also place links in the chat for those of you who wish to purchase tonight. As we know now more than ever, our universities and small presses need our support. And please, everyone, go ahead and add your wonderful comments for each of our featured readers in the chat box as they present their work. It's the least we can do since we can't sit around and ooh and ah and make those noises that we all respond to as we're performing. We will have a very short Q&A after the reading, so be prepared to type in your question either into the chat or the question and answer box. And if time allows, I will invite a few folks from our audience to take advantage of our pop-up open mic just after the Q&A. And that's an invitation of songs or poems or very, very short stories that continue the narrative from those of our artists here tonight. But first, I'd like to just give you a little sneak peek into what's coming next month. On November 18th, we have Jessica Jacobs, editor of the Beloit Poetry Journal, and the fabulous Nicole Brown, along with poet musicians Alan Holmes and Michael Cody. And they are all just amazing and wonderful. And now, Tiffany Williams is a coal miner's daughter, granddaughter, and great-granddaughter from Eastern Kentucky who currently lives in Nashville, where she writes songs and fiction. She received the 2011 Jean Ritchie Fellowship for Appalachian Writing and 2017 Denny C. Plattner Award for Fiction. Her first album, When You Go, was released in January 2019 and reached number 15 on the North American College and Community Radio Folk Chart and number 12 on the Folk DJ Chart. Her second EP, I'll Be Back Soon, was released in February of 2021. So we'll get to hear more about that from Tiffany, I'm sure. The melodic dissonance of her upbringing, the natural mountain beauty balanced by the difficulties of rural life. It's a unifying theme in her music, which delivers heart-worn songs with a room-silencing, angelic alto that takes listeners on an authentic journey of longing, alienation, and undeniable beauty. I have been a Tiffany Williams fan for so many years. When Tiffany sings, there's nothing else like it, not in the room, there's no people around me, not the stage or the backdrop, not even the Zoom window. There's only Tiffany and her remarkable voice. Please welcome Tiffany Williams.
Thank you so much, Carrie. You're supposed to set the bar low for me before I get on here. Thank you. That's very kind. I'm Tiffany Williams. I'm coming live from Nashville, Tennessee. I have short, shoulder-length brown hair, and I am also, like Carrie, a pale-skinned mountain woman. And I'm wearing glasses. They're blue-rimmed, and a long navy shirt, and I'm seated with my guitar, which I'm so glad I get to play for you tonight. I have, it's been a little tough during COVID. It's kind of been hit or miss with the creativity I have found, and I feel like a lot of people have been that way. So I've not been as prolific as in years past, but I did recently finish a murder ballad, an original murder ballad. So I've never played this for anybody else. You guys are the first, and I'm very excited to share it with you. So this is called Dunham Hill, and it's Dunham Hill is actually an old coal road. There's an old coal transport road that goes across Dunham Hill, which is located in the town that I'm originally from. So yeah, this is called Dunham Hill. I had a dream that Dunham Hill was crumbling. I resigned to stay on the other side. The hateful winds around me all were howling. Lightning struck the ground whereon I stood. The branches curled and shook in hangnail moonlight. I feared it would not come to any good. Home is waiting on the Father's shoulder. Home waits for you across the sea. You and none too fit for the going, so you have to stay well with me. I scoured the land in search of safer passage to where my dearest dear waited for me. I heard a faint and forlorn voice imploring. The vanquished hope concede to what must be. Home is waiting on the Father's shoulder. Home waits for you across the sea. But you are none too fit for the going, so you have to stay well with me. One soul's deceived, they found a body buried, shallow in the loam and cracked leaf form. Upon its breast there lay my lover's locket, and in its hoary hair my fingers glowed. Go down, dear souls, and take your leave of waiting. The elements are quickened, not your friends. Dance your days in sun with lovers spinning, and pray that you are long to meet your end. Home is waiting on the Father's shoulder. Home waits for you across the sea. You are none too fit for the going, so you have to stay well with me. I had a dream that Dunter Hill was crumbling. So yeah, that's my spooky Halloween time murder ballad first go through. So yeah, Carrie, thank you so much for mentioning the albums that I have out. I actually have another one in the can, as they say, so it's ready to go whenever it happens. So yeah, that one's not on it, but this one is, and this is called No Bottom. If I had to do different, I'd have pissed more people off, not worried about the cost of indiscretion, and I give a damn who I lost. I demand exactly what I deserve. on my tongue. And I've been the drunkest girl at the party, breathing your name like fire from my lungs. I spent my best years believing that you were where I needed to be. I let you win, pretend I didn't need nothing, so you would save a little space for me. What they don't tell you is it don't matter what you do, you can make all the right turns and still lose your way. You can always get free, but you'll never be safe, 'cause there's no shoreline up ahead, there's no bottom to anything. Love and grief and pain, there's no bottom to anything.
You know, I have trouble speaking after she sings. I really do,
Carrie.
Tiffany.
That's so sweet of you.
That is just so marvelous. And thank you so much. And just so people know, don't go away, because Tiffany's going to sing again for us later. We're going to give her a little bit of a rest here and have her back in a bit. So thank you so much
Thank you
for this
for having
beautiful
me.
music. I look at, there's no bottom to anything. I just like, I've kept my teeth on my tongue. I love that. I just love, you know, your imagery and what you bring beyond your amazing voice and your skills at playing your instrument. So thank you so much, Tiffany.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I've got to try to move on here. Okay, Marcus Jackson studied poetry at NYU's Graduate Creative Writing Program and as a Covey Conem Fellow. His poems have appeared in such publications as the American Poetry Review, The New Yorker, the New York Times Magazine. His second book of poems, entitled Pardon My Heart from Northwestern University Press Tri-Quarterly Books, was released in 2018. Of Pardon My Heart, Jeff Goidinier for the New York Times writes, Jackson's collection confirms the arrival of a thrilling new voice in American poetry, one whose writing on page after page has the fullness and glow of a jubilee. Jackson lives with his wife and child in Columbus, Ohio, and teaches in the MFA programs at Ohio State and Queen's University of Charlotte. And as an aside, you may not know that Marcus is also an amazing photographer, which is what actually first drew me to him when I started seeing his photographs on social media posts. And then, of course, I sought out his work. And when I read his work, it was like, okay, well, now I'm done for. I've got to have it. So I want us all to give a huge Athens County welcome to Marcus Jackson.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you to Stewart's Opera House. Thank you, Tiffany, for stunning work. Thank you to Ruth, who will read in a bit. My name is Marcus. I'm based in Columbus, Ohio. I have light brown skin, short black hair, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt, which is true for 98% of every day. I'm gonna read some poems from 3 different books or manuscripts, and I'm just gonna go in kind of chronological order. I'll start with the first few poems in my first book, Neighborhood Register. And this first poem in that book, I wrote after having moved to New York, and when I was back to visit some family. It just so happened that one of the places that we rented when I was a kid had been torn down, but nothing had been taken away yet. So it was just like rubble on top of rubble, and you can see sort of the skeletons of rooms that you used to live in. And this is the poem I wrote about that moment. It's called 645 Phillips Ave. House whose basement flooded during every rowdy rain. House whose staircase creaked like the knees of the retired farmer I imagine built it. My family rented it a century after he could have lived. Ambulance garage adjacent. Sirens that breached our sleep. Most of my parents' fights happened mornings. Coffee maker prattling. Birds pecking yard for food. With sister and friends, I dragged dad's ashtray cools. Poles banked in the jagged snub before butt. A crony borrowed my bedroom to bumble with Danielle Combs. Magnavox lilting dubbed R&B. Some nights by myself, I climbed out a window to sit on moss-blotched roof and meld my eyes to sky. Whoever owns this house has torn it down. A removal crew has yet to truck up. Brown mounds of ripped away planks, mortar and stray gray strands, plaster, iron balled to flour, disconnected intestine of pipes. Why don't we find and lift a couple intact bricks? Let them chalk our palms maroon. Let them convey the weight it takes to cog a wall, to tolerate 110 Ohio winters, let alone the sounds and the heat each tenant pressed against it. My paternal grandfather passed away when my dad was just into adulthood, so I never got to meet him. And I wanted to write a poem imagining a moment or a day in his life from what I got to hear from everyone who had known him, and just patching together his biography. This is called Escape, 1961. My dad's dad glides alone in his copper Chrysler, rear fenders winged like a murderous bird, up a stretch of 23 North, flanked each side by reedy marsh. He grins. The gold bridge between two of his teeth glints in angled sun and highway wind. In the console tray, a Lucky smolders like a departed thought. He can't know exactly how dank his lungs remain from a younger living dredging coal mines. Every Saturday, he escapes to Adrian, Michigan, his white mistress, their high yellow daughter with flat black hair, who climbs the neighbor's cherry tree, bare feet and dirty fingers, as pluck by pluck she eats the cool crimson globes until her daddy's tires rustle the driveway gravel as if jerking her from a dream. My hometown is Toledo, Ohio, and my first book, at least like some of the book, is in many ways a love letter to Rust Belt cities and Black neighborhoods in Rust Belt cities. And this was a poem I wrote after having moved away, and then revisiting and just slowing down and trying to listen and feel all the sounds. of the neighborhood. It's called Visitation. Through an old man's throat, breath scrapes, bray of trash cans dragged out of alleyway. Street bulbs hum at insects' pitch. In a Chevy belly, motor stutters before it snares ignition's sweet note. So late, intersection signals direct merely air, worries wandering particles. At a 24-hour donut hutch, dozens of glazed rise in a mechanical colander, kettle depth fizzing sugary grease. Out a third floor flat, a couple's voices claw, argument outdone only by the salty body knock that always follows. Do any dreams, landscaping the dozing skulls of this block's young include sound? Which octaves will uncombine and climb through the indefinite worlds they wake from and wake into? So I'll jump to my second book, and I'll just read the first few poems from that book. And the first poem is the title poem of the book. It's called Pardon My Heart. Pardon my heart if it ruins your party. It's a large American heart and has had a good deal to drink. It's a pretty bad dancer, too much feeling, too little technique. It may sing some godless hymns about ousting armies of loneliness, about marching victorious to wives and towns beneath a heart-colored dusk. Pardon my heart if it closes its eyes for hours, whispering rapture over and over. Pardon my heart if it laughs too loudly, or if it tells many of its stories too ardently. Pardon my heart if it rests an arm across you or your friend's shoulders. Touch allows my heart to trust that it's not imagining your company's loveliness. Pardon my heart if you have to kick it out. After you've muzzled the music and brightened the lights to tidy, my heart will ignore and keep doing its little two-step, a glow in the middle of the room, never happier to have nowhere else to go. Before we were old enough to go to the nightclub, as like junior high schoolers, we would go to the roller skating rink. So this is a poem about that. It's called Paradise Skate. Friday nights, we waited in a loud line for the doors push bars to unchain, for the admission lady wearing a stiff wig to collect the $2 cover. Beforehand, we stood at murky mirrors, girls penciling eyeliner or ironing greased kinks, boys honing poses or spraying counterfeit cologne. Above shelves of beige skates for rent, the wall wore a mural of a tropical beach, parrots squawking in the painted trees. Dimness veiled the scarred parquet, a DJ clawing songs as we sang and rapped along. 2 lots west, the powertrain plant kindled engines and differentials to blind life. In the suburbs, our counterparts bladed on ice, their cheeks opening into rosiness. We shimmied on small oiled wheels until sweat glazed our faces, until motion swept the debris from our beings, until big bulbs in the rafters thundered, and we winced in the godly watts, godly for not allowing us to live any longer on delight's tiny island. And I'm the polar opposite of Tiffany when it comes to any type of musical or singing skill. Although there was some musical or singing skill in my family, and I always wished I had some of it. So I wrote a poem just jonesing to be able to sing. And I mentioned, I think, a few of my dad's favorite artists. It's called If Only. If only I could sing like Marvin in a blue room while the rain sounds like raw rice spilling. If only I could sing like an overweight bank account. If only I could sing as Southern as Muddy, as electrically as Jimmy. If only I could sing in the subway with train brakes jumping in as my metal section. If only a needle drank my cries from looping grooves in black wax. If only I could sing Risen, the conjoined wishbones written on sheet music. If only I could sing fields onward toward burgeoning, sing stubborn kings into listening, sing babies in pain to sleep. If only my voice were swallows of ripe wine. If only my voice could be a handsome hand on night's thigh. And then I'll jump to a book in progress that I'm working on. And just to stick with the pattern, I'll just read the first, well, now these are the first 3 poems in the manuscript. It could change. So I think there are, I have 2 guzzles, the poetic form guzzle, and then just a sort of shorter lyric. The first guzzle is called What a Fire. My therapist has approved my drinking of 3 whiskeys per night, her eyes forbearing, knowing well the ruthlessness of night. The son having fled as a father might flee, my cousin fathered a narrow terror while he robbed with a pistol a fellow citizen one night. The encouraging lies of a mother are greatly underpaid job keepers. Slovenly kings have dealt much wrong money to generals and knights. My childhood was a lengthy scene of make-believe and disaccord. My favorite things being rain and watching my mother's cigarettes ignite. What of fire among its timelessness and musculature is not more divine when burning past the open gates of night? I love the word night to death. And that's one of the reasons I chose to have it as a refrain word. One of my other favorite words is the word paper. So here's a guzzle with the refrain, paper. Paper. I'm legally changing my name to Paper. No surname, middle name, or salutation, just paper. As a scuffed up, silent, distracted kid, I stared down at the city-supplied paper, our teacher walking our aisles, seemingly hoping we'd confess some kind of crime on the paper. Teenaged and drunk on a summer street, we yelled or muttered about feeding our pockets with paper. My former probation officer glowed while he instructed me and caressed a pile of paper. Monthly, dusk hushing the windows, I check my child's unpaid birth costs. The hospital's mailed profuse paper. And I'll close with this, and I want to thank you again. I look forward to hearing Ruth and to maybe chatting with some Q&A. This poem is in couplets, at least for the moment, and it's kind of just an ode to solitude. because we're told like, don't be too alone, right? There's a stigma to being alone, but I think you make some of your most important breakthroughs during stretches of solitude, as we have all hopefully discovered. It's called a loneliness so pure. The world encouraged me to complete my doctorate in shamelessness. You'll hurt to not be part of all this interface and commerce, I was warned. Though, as soon as I declined, I was rewarded with a loneliness so pure that my ears could not be found by bothersome words, and my blood felt fed only by the air and the light that lives beneath the glass of greenhouses. My family, my former lovers, and the authorities tried to talk to me, to sway me toward buildings whose entrances have stern signs, but I gazed patiently at everybody's face, each lit from the same failing fire, and I left them speechlessly, my movements constituting a new species of worryless wind. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Marcus, thank you. You know, reading your books are so wonderful, but actually hearing you read them, as always, it's just such an amazing experience to hear a person read their own work. So thank you for that. And I did want you to know, in case you haven't been watching the chat, that many people have mentioned how much they love your book, Pardon My Heart. And I want to mention again, I've put it in the chat, and also that it can be purchased through Northwestern University Press. So for those who end up watching our event later, you'll know where to find that book, Pardon My Heart. So we're so pleased to have Marcus with us tonight, and thank you, Marcus. Ruth Awad is a Lebanese-American poet and author of Set to Music a Wildfire from Southern Indiana Review Press, 2017. Winner of the 2016 Michael Waters Poetry Prize and the 2018 Ohioana Book Award for Poetry. Alongside Rachel Mayonnaise, she is the co-editor of The Familiar Wild on Dogs and Poetry from Sundress Publications in 2020. She is a 2021 NEA Poetry Fellow and the recipient of a 2020 and a 2016 Ohio Arts Council Individual Excellence Award. She won the 2013 and 2012 Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Poetry Prize and the 2011 Copper Nickel Poetry Contest. Her work appears or is forthcoming in Poetry, Poem a Day, The Believer, The New Republic, Pallades, The Missouri Review, The Rumpus, and elsewhere. She has an MFA in poetry from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, and that's where our dear Allison Joseph hails from, and she joined us not too far back. And Ruth lives and writes in Columbus, Ohio. And it's just a marvelous honor to have her with us this evening. So welcome, Ruth Awad.
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction, Carrie, and thank you for inviting me to be here tonight. And thank you to Devin and Stewart's Opera House for this beautiful event. I am so honored to appear alongside Tiffany and Marcus, who are so incredible. Very, very hard acts to follow, so thank you guys. I am a Lebanese American woman. I have long, unruly dark hair. I am wearing a muted red lipstick and too many necklaces probably. And I'm wearing a sage green Henley. Anyway, thank you all for joining tonight, and I'm just gonna get into it and read some some poems. All of the poems that I'm going to read tonight are from my collection in progress, which is coming along slowly but surely. Let's do it. Moral inventory. What good is your goodness really, if it is undone as soon as it begins? I flew over an ocean slicked with plastic. I am still afraid of whales, even though I know they are choking on our trash. I had money in my pocket from a job of casual corporate unkindness and gave it to anyone who asked. I want to be a better animal. I want to love what I can while I can. My dogs who cotton the grass, a song that fills my cup and gallops me under a hunter's moon. So what if I snag in her antlers? I once had a body that wasn't a body. It was a voice in a god's mouth. It was the holy vowel. Oh, animal, I thank you. Oh, flank, oh, wanting gut, say it matters. Tell me to begin again. Tell me, and I will. So part of the scope of my work now is a continuation of a conversation I began with my first collection, which was a collection of poems that followed my father's experiences of growing up in Tripoli, Lebanon during the Lebanese Civil War. The poems I'm working on now take on more of a personal examination of what it means to live in diaspora and to navigate the betweenness of being a first-gen mixed ethnicity in a country like the United States. This is called Catalog of the Inalienable. My father said he gave me this country. Whatever you can mourn, you can love. One day I'll step into the light and be devoured. I'll turn it over in my hands, bewildered. It will be like that first brisk winter he didn't miss wind in olive trees. I must love my country because I mourn it. Agree each hour to live another one. I ache the way sunlight aches. It is very American to be this sad on a Tuesday. To grow mean like a boxwood untaming the window. I'm so greedy now. I want everything. Marvel the blood. Expect the algae that blooms an age of ice. Sometimes what you love will kill you. It will rough your mouth like a kiss. I promise that I'm going to read to you one poem that is not just totally grief-stricken. This next poem, though, is not it. I wrote this, I had been thinking about this poem for a long time, since last summer when I had some personal losses. And I feel like it was an important poem for me to finally put to the page. Reasons to live. Because if you can survive the violet night, you can survive the next. And the fig tree will ache with sweetness for you and sunlight that arrives first at your window, its quiet pawing, even when you can't stand it. And you'll heavy the whining floorboards of the house you filled with animals as hurt and lost as you, and the bearded irises will form fully in their roots, their goading golden manes swaying with the want of spring. Live, 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 live. One day you'll put your hands in the earth and understand an afterlife isn't promised. But the spray of scorpion grass keeps growing, and the dogs will sing their whole bodies in praise of you, and the red buds will lay down their pink crowns, and the rivers will set their stones and ribbons at your door. If only You'll let the world wild and soften you with its touching. As I mentioned, my family is from Tripoli, Lebanon, and I don't know if you've been following the news, although news about it has been quite sparse here in the West, but Lebanon is in severe turmoil. A lot of folks are trying to flee because there's no power, there's no gas, there's no medicine. The price of food has skyrocketed, and it's a really scary time. So I wrote this poem about that situation and interrogating my own privilege here in the United States, even though we have our own whole world of troubles. This one's called Hunger. Imaginary, the value of the pound. And yet when it drops like an apple rotted from its branch, it means my family may starve. Money that would have lasted 20 days, not enough, will only last 5. A kilogram of meat triples, quadruples in price. Hunger measured in the line huddled around a Beirut bakery. A plate of potatoes divided amongst 4, milk for $33, fridges swung open, begging. The shame that I nearly killed myself with hunger years ago. Each rib remarkable to the mother who left and the men who'd rest their heads in my lap. My mother used to say, beauty is pain when brushing my hair, said, smoke follows beauty when her exhale framed my face. Beauty too won't feed you, I know that now. We were poor in Virginia where I was born, but I was never hungry. In a trailer on food stamps, our survival stitched together dirt poor, my mother describes it, though we both know the land is more valuable than anything. My father nearly starved when he first came to America, land he'd read of abundance, nothing like 100 years ago when locusts devoured Lebanon's drought-strangled crops and famine grew in howling stalks in the First Imperial War. What was left of food fed Ottoman soldiers. The work of starvation is hard. The human body can survive weeks without food, metabolizing fat and muscle. There's enough food, and still a body inherits hunger. A spirit does too. What will we feed our dead in a land untamed with riches, where the wanting never stops? Last summer, I nearly died in a very stupid way. I was horseback riding with my partner, and my horse got scared by a dog that had approached her, and she took off and flung me from her back, and my boot was caught in the stirrup, and she dragged me. And I remember her hooves inches from my face. And it was only in that moment when I realized, oh, people die from horseback riding. Like, this happens. I managed to come out mostly unscathed, but I will just never forget those hooves so close to my head. So scary. Anyway, this next poem is about that, and also a gentle reminder to always wear a helmet if you're going to go horseback riding. Even if you're just going for like a little leisurely stroll, wear a helmet. So essential. Anyway, guilt me. There somehow exists a world without you, full of lesser beasts. The morning horses came with their laments and bridles, nuzzling the window, their breath obscuring the pain. I trailed sunlight through a field until the horses were bored. And when the dog rose from the ditch, mine reared like she'd seen a ghost and furied off. And I flew unbeautifully at the speed of her fear, my boot caught in the stirrup, her hooves inches from my face. What animal clings to another and expects to survive it? I would die this way, acutely aware of my mistakes. My body dragged through dust, half the tattoo on my shoulder scraped away. The living aren't more important than the dead. After the fall, the dream horses guilt me. I don't know where to go. Their manes pulling stars into the bedroom, their necks wet with sweat. We are riding for the first bearable day. And I will close out with this poem. I promised you one slightly non-devastating poem, and this is the only one I've got for you. I don't know how many of y'all know Lebanese folks, but we're very proud of where we're from, and my dad is no exception. All I want to say about this poem is it is based on a very 100% true story. So thanks, Dad, for inspiring it. All the oranges of Tripoli. It is not enough for everything to stem from Lebanon. No, my father contends, it was Tripoli where oranges first originated. And if my sisters and I had any doubt, just look at this Wikipedia entry for oranges, my father says, his gap-toothed grin widening not unlike an orange split open. Just look. And like magic, whose origins, I'm told, are also Lebanese, there for the world to see, unassailable proof that oranges come not from South China nor Spain, but Tripoli. And I know oranges belong to everyone and no one. And I know my father is not above editing Wikipedia. Did you know Wikipedia may well have Lebanese roots? And his research may be scientifically unsound, a story heard from an uncle or cousin, but this is absolutely true. Once there were vast orange orchards in Tripoli, and when they were in bloom, the whole city smelled like citrus. It was like a beautiful woman's perfume. It was like you could smell sunlight. And during the war and after, and every time Tripoli burned, imagine the fruit peeled in your palm. Now imagine that fruit is a city. It was unlike anything, he says. I'm telling you, anything. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Ruth, that was just so wonderful. I really appreciate you educating us as well, because as you said, there seems to be so little attention being paid to Lebanon right now, and it just seems so unreasonable and so absolutely ridiculous. And we just don't know how really good we do have it here in this country when you start thinking about others that are suffering so profoundly. So thank you for reminding us of all of that in the most gorgeous way that could ever happen. So thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much. I just want to mention once again, I put the links to everyone's work in the chat, but I will say very quickly, just for folks who'll be watching this later, that you can find Tiffany's work on her website, tiffanyMWilliams.com. Pardon My Heart is at Northwestern University Press, and Ruth's work is at bookshop.org, and her Sundress anthology is at Sundress Publications, of course. And that's the anthology, The Familiar Wild on Dogs and Poetry. So this is the time of the night when I ask everybody to go ahead and turn on their videos, and we will take some questions from the audience. And we do have one that came up real early on. And if any of the others of you want to put it in the Q&A or the chat, I'm happy to share those with our artists tonight. But the first one we have is for Marcus. And someone is asking, they'd love to know about your wall of poems over what looks to us to be your left-hand shoulder. So is that a wall of poems, Marcus?
Yeah, it's the book I'm working on. I couldn't, everything has gotten so screen driven that I had to go back to the method of like, once a draft has been revised, they're really printing it out and getting it to a point where I can figure out where it's going to go or how it might fit with other ones. And then it's also easier, I think, to make edits when you're on multiple poems that way, because you can learn something from one draft and then go back to another one and just sketch something else in.
I love that. I don't know how many times my entire floor has been full of poems, and then you can't leave them there though, because you've got to walk and you've got to do things. So what a brilliant idea to just have a wall you can leave them up
If you
on.
have patience for Scotch tape, for gentle Scotch tape that doesn't tear up your paint, it's okay.
Yeah, what a wonderful thing to share with all of us. And I do hope all of you are looking in the chat, because there are just so many wonderful comments made by everyone here tonight about the work and how much we love everything that we've been, these gifts we've been given from all of you. So I came up with a few questions of my own. I think people get shy when it comes to this time of the night. So I always have a ton of questions, and I'm bad about that. But so I had a question for Ruth, and you've just truly, I know you've had a good bit of sadness this past year. And I don't want to talk about that. I know you've shared what you're able, but I think you've also had some really good news, and that being the NEA fellowship. And I was so thrilled when I saw your name on that list. It was almost like I had won myself because I was like, oh my God, it's Ruth and it's Ohio. And I was just so proud of you. And it may not be as big a deal to you as it is to me that you won it, but I still would like to hear what you think about it, and what, if anything, it has meant to you. Has it been life altering or anything? I'd just love to hear about it.
Oh, thank you, Carrie. I really appreciate that. It's an enormous deal to me. I will never be at the point where things don't feel like a big deal. Every time I have a success with poetry, I'm just like, how is this possible? I remember being 12 and writing my silly little poems, and I don't think I could have ever imagined being like, a real poet. So yeah, it all feels like a gift. I did tweet something inspired by my NEA grant, which is that said you can like win all the literary awards you want, but your parents are still gonna ask what it is. And that was 100% true when I got the news about the NEA, and I was telling my parents, and they're like, "Oh, sweetie, that's good. What is it?" It's nice. It keeps you humble, But it was really validating, I think, was the biggest takeaway for me. It gave me the kind of the confidence to really take up writing my second collection in earnest, because I've been struggling with it for myriad reasons. But I have been writing more this year than I had been in the last couple of years. So that is probably the biggest change, and it's been really rewarding.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm just so happy to hear that, because I was hoping that's how you would feel, because I can't even imagine it. So I think that's wonderful. And congratulations again, Ruth.
Thank you.
Very special. Well, Tiffany, I'm going to ask, because I like to keep on top of what you're doing, and I know everybody else is going to want to know too. So I know you always have ideas circling around. I mean, you're a person who has to do your own marketing pretty much, and you have to come up with your ideas and where you're going and what you're going to do next. And you have been astounding at that, as the way you have managed to be in the right place at the right time and get, on the right charts and, get yourself where you need to be. So of course, now I want to know, what's next, or can you share with us a few things that you have in mind? Because you said you have a new EP. Is that it, or a new? Oh, yeah, I think your mic's off, Tiffany.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I put out 2 EPs, but the next one is my debut LP. So yeah, there's it's 10 songs, and I worked with Dwayne Lundy during COVID. I think we finished it during the worst months. It's been done for a little while actually, but yeah, it's 10 songs, and um they're ready to go whenever. But like you said, I'm doing all the marketing and all the release and whatever, and so I have to figure out like when's a good time for me based on all these different factors. And so yeah, I was playing at City Winery, I don't know, this summer sometime here in Nashville. And I told them that I have an album. I said I don't know when it's coming out, but if you guys get me drunk enough, I will. I didn't say that. That sounds so bad. I don't think my mom is watching. But I said if you give me another hard cider, then I'll let you listen to it from my phone. And then somebody actually bought me one. So they didn't get to hear the album though. So, but you, Carrie, if you would like to hear it, I will let you hear it.
I would love to hear it, and I would love to help you spread the word when
Yeah,
you are
thank you.
ready. So please tell me so that I can help with that. And Devin obviously wants to do that as
Yeah.
well.
Thank
So
you.
maybe we could help you with the social media end of things and
Oh
help push
goodness,
it out there a
yeah.
little further. So
Thank
I'd
you.
really love to do that. Love
Yeah.
to do that.
I will say
Thank
that
you.
I can't say for sure, but it's looking like mid-August of next year. So, fingers
Wonderful.
crossed.
Wonderful. I think, isn't that the hard part for everyone who's in the writing business, which includes music, of course, is that you get everything done and you're ready to go, and they say, yes, we want your work, and we'll publish it 2 years from now. It's going to take
Right.
so
Yeah,
long
yeah, yeah. And in the
to get
meantime,
it
there's other
published.
stuff you've got going, and you're like, oh, I don't even remember those
Right.
songs.
I know. By the time you have the book or the CD or whatever in your hand, you've gone further on to other things. So it is funny how that works. But we are
The great thing
grateful.
about it, though, is that people like you with enthusiasm, like they make you remember why you loved the thing anyway, or why you felt like it was even worth putting out. So people remind you when it comes time. Yeah.
Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you, Tiffany. Oh my goodness. And then I have one for Marcus too. I just thought maybe you'd tell us a little bit about your photography, because I found it so stunning. And sometimes it seems like you no, I just want you to talk about it. I don't want to put any words to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the joys of my life. And I got serious about photography when my daughter was born, and that was when I got my first real camera. And then as she grew up a little bit, and I was looking after her, during the day, every day. And when she was old enough to run around at the park, then I started really trying to make photos on a daily basis, and doing everything manual. And then when she got older and was sick of me taking photos of her, then I really got serious about street photography and street portraits. And it's a lot like poetry, especially thinking about like how to distill narrative within a specific form, or within some type of constraint that you sort of agree to before you start writing. If you say like, I'm going to write a sonnet, so I only have 14 lines, roughly 10 syllables a line. And then with photography, it's basically just, if you're using a prime lens, it's whatever that focal length is and whatever your aspect ratio is, you have to move and be able to get enough contrasting elements or dynamic elements to where even if there wasn't specifically a narrative happening between the people or the subjects that are in the frame, the reader's or the viewer's imagination can jump in and make something happen. So it's pretty intuitive in terms of, and it's difficult, just like poems are. I write tons of bad poems to write one good one, and with photos it's the same way. You just hope to get one good one.
And Marcus, mostly what I've seen from you is black and white. Is that
Mhm.
is that your pretty much your genre?
Yes. Color tends to distract me, and I compositionally, I don't see things. I'm not drawn to color. I'm drawn to shapes, geometry, and movement. Um, and as a viewer, black and white has always been my favorite since I was a child. Even going back to like my parents were actors, so I would watch older black and white movies, and it's always been my favorite.
Nice. I truly hear what you're saying, because I have an undergrad in graphic design and a master's in photography,
Yep.
commercial photography. And someone said, "How'd you end up a poet?" And I said, "Well, a photograph is a moment in time, and graphic artists are all about just taking all this information and organizing it so that you see it properly and read it properly." And I said, "Well, there's two disciplines that just really add up to poetry."
Yep.
So I hear you saying that's what you're doing as well. You're writing poems with your camera. So I love that. I love that so much. Well, we do have probably a couple of minutes. We could probably take on a couple of readers. Does anybody in the audience want to read tonight? You can put your name in the chat, and Devin can let you in if you'd like to share a poem with us that kind of continues the narrative that Tiffany and Marcus and Ruth began. So does anybody want to join us this evening? I know it's very hard to follow folks that give us this beautiful, beautiful information. I'll just wait another second or two just to make sure nobody changed their mind and nobody else had a question. Oh, wait a minute. That's the same question. Yeah. Just want to make sure I don't miss anybody. I do want to remind everyone again to buy the books and the CDs. This is so important during this time when all of us really are not having an opportunity to sell as many of our books as we normally do. And this not only helps the artist, and I have to tell you, it doesn't help us all that much, but it very much helps our publishers so that they stay afloat, so that they can continue to publish marvelous work like those that you've heard today. So it says Daniel Canterbury will play a song for us if there's time, and I would love that. Yes, I would love that. So can you let Dan in? I don't know if he's with Bonnie. I think maybe he's with Bonnie Proudfoot. I think if you let her in, they're probably sharing.
Absolutely.
This is a treat, y'all. You're going to love this. And then we still have a tune from Tiffany coming. So don't anybody leave.
Bonnie should be coming in right now.
Okay. I do see Bonnie's face.
Sorry about that, folks. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can, Dan.
I'm gonna do this in a hurry. Can you hear the guitar? Because I'm using a different kind of mic.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. This I'm not going to introduce this song other than to say it's very, very new, and nobody has to call for help. It's called Wore Out. I got wore out. All this fighting toward a finish line done did me in. And looking back, I see all the faults and fissures I fell in. Climbed out and then back in again. And nothing clarifies the mind like loss. You go over things and over things until you get some kind of manic high from getting lost inside those coulda, woulda, shoulda, maybe might have been. And you watch yourself get ground to dust inside the gears of all the years. And you get wore out, you get wore out, you get wore out, you get wore out. And salvation always seems to be just round the bend. like some TV preacher's promises if you just send. But they never ask for time, 'cause that's already spent. Watch as the fruits of all your labor done gone bad again, and get wore out, you get wore out, you get wore out, you get wore out. If we knew how hard this was that we have started, nobody tells us this, we go in blind and expect the sea to just keep parting while we keep on going under. Amazed and full of worried wonder, so surprised to be caught drowning, reaching for each other's hands. And we get wore out, we get wore out, we get wore out, we get wore out. I got wore out. All this fighting toward a finish line undid me in. And looking back, I see all the faults and fissures I fell in. Climbed out and then fell in again. I'm reaching for your hand. Reaching for your hand.
Oh, Dan, that was wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us tonight. That was just fabulous.
Thanks,
Thank you. So good to hear from you. It's been a while since I've heard you sing, Dan. So this has been a wonderful gift. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anybody else? This is the very last call. Okay, well, I'm going to ask. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much to our generous sponsor, Stewart's Opera House, and especially our charming host, Devin Sudman, for lending us the technical support tonight. And Tiffany Williams is going to sing us home tonight. I want y'all to be careful. I want you to come back in November to see us on November the 23rd. Tiffany, if you would.
What a miracle to be here at all. Here we are in the same stretch of time, dropped down, not knowing why or how it all turns out. And so we wait here. Will you wait with me? Will you come be by my side? I love you like the mountains love the warm sunrise. I love you. Is that alright? Our time here lingers like a morning fog, then it's gone. But still the days drag on. We could spend the endless hours sitting close, and maybe we won't mind the waiting. Will you wait with me? Will you come be by my side? that alright? When the gloaming comes, when the work is almost done, we'll draw near and we'll think back on how we cried. How sometimes it felt like flying, and how we both loved the waiting. Will you wait with me? Will you come be by my side? I love you like the warm sand loves the cooling tide. I love you. Is that alright?
Thank you, Tiffany. And thank you, Joe and Nico, for your assistance tonight. Thank you, Devin, Stewart's Opera House. I want you all to stay vigilant. You're precious to me. I'll see you all back on the